Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Pocono. We always favor the bright beauty that it is with the historic mountains and the lovely Pocono Lake. And this weekend, Pocono Raceway, which people consider to be sometimes maybe one of the most boring racetracks on the circuit. But this weekend, two races combined into a doubleheader at the Tricky Triangle. There was some pretty decent action, and then there was some exciting action all the way around. And a lot of records and first-time things happened this weekend. So let's get into it with this special race recap of the two Pocono races into one complete video. So let's get started. Number one, Kevin Harvick, about time, finally won at Pocono Raceway as he captured yesterday's Pocono Organics 325 over Denny Hamlin, Eric Almarola, Christopher Bell, and Kyle Busch. A little fun fact before I get into Kevin Harvick. First top 5 for Christopher Bell. Kevin Harvick finally has a win at Pocono Raceway. He has been to Pocono many, many times, but up until yesterday's first race at Pocono, Kevin Harvick was 0 for 38 at this track. He had never won here before. It's one of the 3 tracks on the circuit that he has never won, with the others being Kentucky and obviously the Roval, which is still fairly new. But Kevin Harvick yesterday, even though he didn't have the best car and they had to really work on that race car, he put it together right at the right exact time when he needed to, with good track position, good adjustments, and a better pit stop as he was basically snaking down the back stretch and the front stretch all the last couple laps, trying to hold off one of the best at Pocono and Denny Hamlin to pick up his 3rd win of the season and obviously carry a lot of momentum going forward as a championship favorite. Kevin Harvick has been close many, many times here in Pocono, of course. He's finished second 4 times here, and of course one of them was back in 2017 with that historic battle with Ryan Blaney, who got his first career win. So Harvick finally picks up his first Pocono win yesterday, and it was a very special moment. And he said after post-race, I'm not doing any burnouts until we get more fans back. Obviously, we're still waiting for fans to come back to the sport, but Kevin Harvick yesterday put on a very solid performance by him and his team. They are definitely championship contenders going forward. Number 2, Denny Hamlin captured today's Pocono 350, winning it over Kevin Harvick, if you can believe it or not. Both of them were fighting for the win this weekend. Harvick was 2nd, Eric Jones 3rd, Chase Elliott 4th, and Eric Almarola 5th. Denny Hamlin also is stamping himself as a championship contender for the playoffs later this year. Obviously, everybody is wondering, is this the year that Denny Hamlin finally breaks through and gets that first championship? Because Hamlin's been close multiple times. Rookie year 2006, back in 2010 where he was racing with Jimmy Johnson and Kevin Harvick for the championship. 2014 he made the Final 4. Last year probably would have been the year for Hamlin if it wasn't for a pit stop where he accidentally put a big piece of tape on the front of his grill, ultimately killing the arrow onto his car and ultimately settling him for a 10th place finish in that race. Denny Hamlin obviously has had a very good season so far this year. Probably has been the best of the Toyotas as he won the Daytona 500. He also won at the 2nd Darlington race when we returned. And he won at Homestead while his crew chief, Chris Gabehart, was on suspension after the ballast issue at the Coca-Cola 600. And today, at a track where he's had very strong success, obviously his first career win came here 14 years ago in 2006. He set a record today as he tied my favorite driver, still one of my all-time favorites, Jeff Gordon, for the most wins at Pocono with 6. So bravo to Denny Hamlin, absolutely well-deserved. And he played the last pit stop of the race perfectly, literally on point, as he stayed out a couple laps longer than Kevin Harvick, who pitted earlier. Hamlin came in, and they did 2 quick tires and a quick gas and fuel, and he just basically got out front and literally was praying, like, please no caution, because that would have jumbled the field back up, and he probably would have had a lot of those guys to deal with that were coming in at him, like Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski and those guys. He would have had to fend them off. But Denny Hamlin ultimately did not get a caution. Had to deal with a little bit of weather this weekend. Obviously dealt with it today, and we finished under the sunset, which was pretty spectacular. Denny Hamlin is, again, having a very strong season and is the best of the Toyota class by far. Number 3, Eric Almarola. He had himself a very good weekend. He was randomly picked to be the pole sitter for yesterday's race and led the first couple of laps, won stage number 2, and looked to be in contention to win the race, but ultimately got off strategy based off of tires, taking 4 tires versus 2, and ultimately finished 3rd, which is a very solid performance for Almarola. Then he started a little bit deeper in the field today. They set the field by inverted order based off of yesterday's finishes. The 20th place finisher started on the pole, and the guy that won the race started in 20th, but most of the guys that started at the back based on the inverted order still ended up in the top 5 regardless. Almarola, one of those guys, obviously, had a nice 5th place run. He had a very solid weekend, and it's going to help him a lot in the point standings. He'll probably jump into he's in the top 12. He may jump into the top 10 in points at the end of the night because, all the points he accumulated through stage points, the stage win, and the top 5 finishes he's had. Again, Eric Almarola, we may not talk a whole lot about him, but he's like a quiet, consistent, sneaky driver, kind of like Kurt Busch. When we usually talk about Kyle Busch winning races, Kurt Busch is usually finishing in the top 10 for the most part. It's kind of the same thing with Almarola. He's probably the second best car at Stewart-Haas right now behind Kevin Harvick, who's obviously been the class of Stewart-Haas all this year. Almarola might be the second best car, getting a little edge over Clint Bowyer because Almarola's had a little bit better finishes, and if you remember last weekend, he finished 3rd at Talladega, literally going backwards because he was involved in all the carnage on that last lap coming to the checkered flag. But Almarola is having another solid season, probably a little bit better season than he had last year, even though he made the playoffs last year. He ultimately got eliminated after the round of 16. If Almarola can win a race and he's a good super speedway racer, but if he can win a race on a non-super speedway track, watch out for Eric Almarola to be a dark horse like he was in 2018, where he won at Talladega and made all the way to the round of 8 and could have gone to the round of 4 if luck had played his way. But Almarola's had a very good weekend to what has been a very good season for him and the team. Number 4, we all know at Pocono, it all comes down to strategy, track position, and a fast race car. We had a lot of that. And also, you know what makes Pocono fun? Restarts. The restarts yesterday were pretty good. Today's was a lot better. Especially if I'm not going to get into it, but if you watch the Xfinity and truck race that they had earlier today, holy crap, those races were incredible with all the restarts and all the crashes that we had. There were a couple crashes we had on the restarts today, which were a lot of fun. And the restarts at Pocono, Pocono may be one of those boring races, especially on long runs, but on those short runs on restarts, they're pretty fun to watch when they get 3 and 4 wide and they're all jockeying for position. There was a good amount of racing at Pocono today. They did a really good job. Everybody was, competitive on the restarts, especially knowing there was a couple of showers in the area, but we ultimately got all the distance in for today and yesterday. And plus strategy, you always got to dictate. We're going to be on a different strategy compared to everybody else around us based on maybe where we're running, where we started, what are we looking for down the road as far as the rest of the race goes. Obviously you got, the fuel window, 40 to 44 laps. You got to basically have the best crew chief to tell you, here's what we're going to do as far as the strategy goes. And basically, Pocono is basically like a puzzle. It's like a riddle. How are you going to win the race based off of track position, strategy, and a fast race car? You got to have all of that. And ultimately, the guys like Harvick and Hamlin, they had that. And a couple of guys that got some good results yesterday had some good results today. And some of the guys that maybe didn't have the best results in Saturday's race got a better result today. So that basically shows the fun and excitement about differing strategies and how track position can jumble up the playing field, especially here at Pocono Raceway, which is pretty fun and entertaining. You see comers and goers. It does provide a little bit of excitement and a little bit of, interesting stuff to watch on television. I think it's pretty good stuff. And number 5 will be driver recap for Chase Elliott for both races, because I would talk about Kyle Busch, but come on, after today's crash, there's really nothing else to talk about Kyle Busch. He's not really having a good year. Number 5 will be driver recap for Chase Elliott. Yesterday, we were good for the most part of the race, but he had problems with his transmission on the restarts when he's shifting from 3rd to 4th gear. It was stuck in 3rd gear for just a split second, then he got it back into 4th. So they had to come and make some changes, but ultimately, I don't think it worked, and we were stuck back in the dirty air, which doesn't help when you're back there. You can't really pass anybody, and he ultimately finished 25th a lap down, which, wasn't the best. And today, we had to change that transmission because we were afraid it was going to happen again. So we had to change the transmission, start at the rear. But that didn't affect us because he drove up through the field, passing a lot of cars at the beginning, and even through all the restarts and everything. Chase Elliott had a good race car today. Again, a 4th place finish for him today. Having a really good season again. He's just had some very good cars, and building on consistency, we could be a contender when he gets to the playoffs. So, Pocono is officially in the books. I know some fans are out there like, thank God Pocono's done with. But I thought Pocono for a doubleheader weekend was pretty fun. It would have been nice if the fans were there to probably enjoy it, but hopefully that'll be the case next year, because I got a feeling Pocono will be a doubleheader next year for the 2021 schedule. So up next will be Indianapolis, the Brickyard 400. Just a quick note, NBC's first race of the season. Fox Sports will still be back for the following weekend after Indianapolis for Kentucky, their first and probably maybe only start ever as a broadcast team. And then they'll have the All-Star race, which has been shifted to Bristol. And then NBC will carry on the rest of the season. But NBC gets their first pick of the season at Indianapolis, a very historic track, and can't wait to see what happens on 4th of July weekend. It's going to be an entertaining race. How will Jimmie Johnson do in his final race at a track where he's won the Brickyard 400 3 times? Will he, or excuse me, 4 times? 3 or 4 times, I can't remember. He's won there a lot. Will Jimmie Johnson add another Brickyard 400 to his list? And can Kyle Busch break through for his first win of the season? Because the champ just looks lost right now. We shall see, with all the questions hopefully answered next week. So in the meantime, subscribe, like. Congrats to Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin for winning both the Pocono events this weekend. Fairly entertaining racing. And until then, have a nice week.